It looks like Kalen DeBoer is going to be the head coach at Alabama. But you could almost set your watch to it that a rather sizable amount of television and radio personalities went to one name when the Alabama job came open. That name is Deion Sanders. And it's really interesting that we've watched the Deion thing unfold all year. And if you want to backtrack it to when he took the Colorado job last year at this time, I was one of the many who said, what a home run. It'll absolutely work. Absolutely work. It brings, I had no idea how for at least a month they would own college football. And look, we didn't know that TCU was crummy. We thought TCU, coming off a national championship game, would be able to use the NIL that they had, the money they generated and the interest they generated to get another good football team. But when they beat TCU at TCU to start the season, everybody, myself included, impressed, stunned, and it started this kind of out-of-control hype train that took a month before it started to come off the rails. But you've had TV personality after TV personality say, oh, Deion Sanders. So now Kalen DeBoer gets the job, and he's not a household name unless you know college football. But what he has done is he's taken over two downtrodden programs, right? Fresno State and Washington, and immediately turned them around. And so the only question is going to be like, hey, is location a factor? Because Kalen DeBoer is a head coach, and he's been a head coach in Sioux Falls before. How about that one? Sioux Falls, which we're on in Sioux Falls. I don't know if you guys know. And there's a radio host in Sioux Falls. He has me on a couple times a year. And I've said, like, I want to come up to South Dakota. That'd be my jam. 3-time NAIA champion when he was at Sioux Falls, University of Sioux Falls. Right. Then he's at Fresno State in 2020. He came over, and, of course, that was the COVID year. And they go 3-3 and then 9-3 in his second year at Fresno State. And if you remember Fresno State, okay, Fresno was once a really, really proud program. Really proud program. Goes to Washington, immediately turns that thing around. So this guy has proven himself when he's, and I mean, think about this. His run at Sioux Falls was 67-3. 67-3. At Washington in 2 years, 25-3. Now, he brought Michael Penix with him, who was his quarterback when he was at Indiana as the offensive coordinator before he left and went to Fresno State. So there was a relationship built there. But still, that's kind of incredibly impressive, is it not? And yet, there's still going to be people like, man, Deion Sanders would have been better. So, look, I like the Deion Sanders idea. But where Deion works is a team or a program that needs a jolt, that needs energy, that needs help in recruiting. And here's where I would be with it. Okay? It wouldn't be a no for me. And again, I understand that with the news of the day, it likely doesn't matter. But we've gotten into this space where it's a yes, you have to hire this guy, or it's a no. And that's not the reality of how things work. The reality to it is that while you have a big name athletic director at Alabama, the truth becomes that you need the donors to approve of the hire, to be excited about the hire. And you're like, well, it's too much power. Like, no, that's not how it works. Okay, how it really works is, in order for you to field a football team, okay, you're going to need in the $8 to $10 million range. For a big-time team, you're talking $10 million. In order to do that, the university can't come up out of pocket based on how it works now. Should it be able to? That's a different discussion. Okay? But again, based upon the rules, in order to do it, in order to have the dudes it takes, because do you need quality coaching? Yes, you do. But you also need players. No one's ever done it without players. And you can't have any players unless you're willing to come off the money. And you can't get the money unless you hire a coach that people buy into. Now, would they be into Deion? I'm guessing probably. But whoever the powerful movers and shakers are, and by the way, I'm guessing this was knighted by Nick Saban, because Nick Saban talked about them having a head coach in place, hopefully by weeks or weekends end. So I'm sure he was brought in, like, who are the guys that you would hire? And they started with Oregon's coach, and they went to Washington's coach, but most people thought this is where they were going to end up with. But we've gotten to this place to where it's like Deion, completely dismissing the fact that while early on it was great, the attention they received, the recruits they got, the Louis luggage or whatever, all that's good. The downside to it is, the true downside to it is that, he mismanaged the program. Deion has never said, I'm going to out-coach the guy, that I'm going to out-X and O a guy. And maybe this is part of what made Nick Saban great. When Nick Saban took the job, okay, there's the old Reese Davis who just did an interview with him. Okay, Reese Davis tells people all the time the story that he was told, which is when he got on the plane after the press conference to go to the press conference, the chancellor was with him, and the chancellor was like, we just got the best coach in America. And Nick Saban stopped him and said, no, you just got the best recruiter in America. So no one's ever done it without players, and that would be a home run for Deion Sanders. But in terms of managing a program, coaching a program, Nick Saban is a master coach, specifically on the defensive side of the football. And that's probably where Kalen DeBoer comes in. So we lose our minds with several people and several topics, and it becomes polarizing. It becomes about race. It becomes about things that aren't really how it works in college or professional athletics. And you could have set your watch to it. I know exactly where we're going with this argument. I know exactly what's going to happen. And sure enough, so many of the people who you thought would say something about, Kalen, that Deion Sanders should get the job, were exactly the guys who said Deion Sanders should get the job. I do wonder, though. I mean, it's like one of those deals where you're sitting there going, man, you sure he wants that thing? Now, part of it is you're going to lose Penix. You got to kind of start all over. You lose your best wide receiver. You lose your best running back. You lose all your talent. Now you kind of got to go and redo things. If that becomes the hire, let me start with you, Dan Byer. Do you like the hire of Kalen DeBoer at Alabama?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't knock my socks off. It seems like it's a natural sort of move, and maybe that's the sort of move that you have to make at Alabama. Maybe this isn't the time to take a risk on someone. Coming off of a national championship appearance helps. The other names that dropped out, this helps. So, yeah, I'm fine with it.
You don't think they're taking a chance?
Well, I think that when you look at the landscape of college football, I don't know if he would have been option number one for them. But I do think it tells the fan base of saying, hey, we got a guy who just took a team to the national championship. He's going to come in and have his program. I think if there would have been a more exhaustive search and maybe been a name that we didn't think would be an automatic, I think that is a risk. Maybe taking a former, assistant, although a lot of those assistants ended up getting head coaching jobs, would be a risk. This is to me is a very safe play.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if it's safe. I think he's obviously a big time football coach, And for him, I'm sure the thought process is, look what I was able to do at Washington with good resources. Okay, what could I do if I had all the resources of Alabama? Now, I don't know if it's the smart thing, right? Seattle's an incredible city, but there's so much unknown.
Well, it's an obvious move for him. I mean,
is it?
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
Yeah, because it's Alabama. You get that opportunity. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. Washington was apparently offering him about $9 million.
Yeah.
To stick around there. Yeah, this is.
But is it obvious? I mean, I understand. Okay, but you're following Nick Saban. You're in the SEC. It's a part of the country you've never been in before, never worked in before. It's a different deal down there. And no matter what you do, you're going to be measured against the greatest of all time, and the likelihood that you are able, you're able to get there, to get to even that level is not great. Now, maybe it's because he's never lost as a head coach, so he doesn't think he'd ever lose as a head coach at Alabama. I get that's a healthy ego we all have to have. We have to have this, and it's supported by the numbers. But there is a very realistic thought that you're taking this job to get fired. Yes, you could win a national championship, but you could also be fired shortly after a national championship. That's happened before.
If you're scared, get a dog. That's I think the
but
motto
are you?
of it.
But are you? And
when is he going to maximize it? He's not going to maximize the Washington gig more than what he's done right now. There's no way. Even if Washington were to make the 12-team playoff next year, lose in, say, the second round, you're not coming off of a national championship appearance. And I think you cash those chips in. And I think the Norvells, the Sarkisians, those guys not wanting the job, and Norvell's getting a contract extension at Florida State. They're also choosing him over Dabo, which is, I think, an interesting scenario. Maybe one that we wouldn't have seen a couple of years ago, but now maybe makes a little bit more sense. I don't think that there's anybody who follows Saban is going to have to follow Saban. And so you minimize, I think, the risk. It sells your fan base of a guy who just took a team to the national championship game. I understand the logistics of recruiting and maybe even his head coaching experience on a Power 5 level, of just having the 2 years at Washington. But yeah, this is pretty natural, I think. I think it's.
I agree, but again, that what has changed in college football is location doesn't matter as much. I'm sure it's a resource thing. Hey, what could I do if I doubled my football budget, my NIL budget? Everything doubles. Everything is easier. Right? But like I said, you're taking that job to get paid. You're taking that job to go after the brass ring, but you're also taking that job knowing you're going to get fired.
This may not make sense, but Alabama's not going to want to hire someone who doesn't want to take that job as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're afraid to replace Saban, then you're not cut for the job anyway. That just kind of comes with the territory.
I don't know. I don't think, and if I gave off the impression, or if that's what people get when I say you don't have to be. It's not about being afraid to replace Saban. It's just about a healthy respect for that dude was unbelievable for a long time, and having just the wherewithal of how it works, right? How it works. And look, it may not matter because now you got 4 spots in the college football playoff, and you cannot be what Alabama was and still get in there and once you get in there, it can be about coaching.
Who do you think is safe? Like, if you don't think he's safe, who do you think is a safe hire for them? Bill O'Brien?
No, I don't think Bill O'Brien's a safe hire. I think a safe hire would be a safe hire.
Kalen DeBoer.
No, I think it's not safe because he doesn't have the reputation recruiting-wise. Now, look, recruiting has changed. It's about the portal now. You just don't – it's really hard to win with young players, and young players don't want to stay and don't want to sit, and you got to have but it's a completely different animal. What would be – I mean, Kirby would be safe. I think Dabo would be safe.
Well, Kirby Smart's not going to leave Georgia.
I understand.
But yeah, I think Dabo comes with more risk than Kalen DeBoer does.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, and I think that there's a topic of conversation because I felt for the longest of times we felt that Dabo was likely the heir apparent. In fact,
Correct.
When you started this segment and you said the one name that people threw out there and you said, duh, and I'm like, yep, Dabo. And then you said Deion. I was like, huh, because I felt Dabo was the name. And now to have what's going on at Clemson and to have his stuff and his comments about NIL and to have Alabama 2 days after Saban announces that he's calling it quits to already have his replacement and Dabo not even apparently getting a sniff of that. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty amazing.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen, right?
Yeah.
He's won 10 ACC divisional champions, 8 ACCs straight up. But, of course, hadn't won one, didn't win it this year, won the ACC championship game 2 years ago. And it's been a minute. But he's been unbelievable, and he won a national championship, and he's, gotten them to back in the BCS bowls and whatever. I mean, he's been remarkable. So plus he's an Alabama alum. I'm stunned at how they kind of turned on him. I'm really stunned.
Well, that's it. Yeah, the Alabama connection is why he was, kind of. I don't want to say the heir apparent because we just thought that he would probably be next in line whenever Saban wanted to.
No, he did. I thought so too. I thought that would make complete sense. Right? Football fans, be sure to turn in to Fox Sports Radio every Saturday and Sunday morning, 3 hours before kickoff. Countdown to kickoff presented by BetMGM. They'll walk you right up to kickoff on Saturdays and Sundays, hit on all the key storylines with all the best bets. You can listen to Countdown to Kickoff weekend mornings beginning at 9 Eastern on Saturdays or 10 a.m. Eastern on Sundays right here on FoxSportsRadio.com. Look, I just want to wrap up the Deion talk. It's like I understand he's a head coach and they've made a huge splash, but we are getting close to that Eric Bieniemy sort of territory where just throw out the guy's name. Like, yeah, I mean, because you mentioned Norvell. I mean, Norvell's the perfect example. All of this Deion coaching stuff comes back to he wanted to be the coach of Florida State. They hired Mike Norvell instead of him. And so then Deion took a job at Jackson State, coached there for a couple years, and now has matriculated to Colorado State. But the guy they hired instead was Mike Norvell, who quietly went about his business, overturned the roster, and they finished undefeated. It's like weird. Like we can sit here, the same people that will tout Deion Sanders, like, look at the energy, look at the turnaround, look at how much we're talking about Colorado. Like, okay, the job he wanted was Florida State. Look at what that guy did.